Smart ass. All right. So let's rock. I put a lot of notes in the blueprint, and but I thought I don't know. I didn't want to like have a totally controlled meeting with like an agenda, because just talking to folks, I know a lot of people have ideas that they want to share and stuff like that. So it's probably more important that we get everybody's ideas out, and then we can convert that into a plan of record later. Especially, I think that this area is going to be more of a duocracy than anything else. Like, the way to get your stuff implemented in it is probably going to be to implement it. But if I did want to make a couple points first about this project that we started called Quickly Widgets, which I think is gonna be like I think the Quickly namespace, at least for the time being, we're thinking that's mostly going to be like this sort of container for like fun and easy programming tasks as we develop them, but then they might migrate from that Quickly namespace to other places. You know, for instance, if an upstream thinks it's useful, we'll gladly release it to other namespaces, if that makes sense. So I don't think like we really want this to necessarily be like a static project. I also think this differs from other projects like libsexy and such in a couple of important ways. First of all, I want to keep it implemented in Python if possible, because I think we'll get more participation. Like, more people will be able to hack things together here. And then the other thing is, I think our design ethic should be really clear and like really simple. So for a
quick question.
Yeah.
So when you say you want to keep it in Python, do you want to keep it pure Python, or just make sure there's always really nice Python API available?
The second one, but I don't know how to do the first one with the second one without doing the first one. But that doesn't mean it can't be done.
Okay, so, but you said there's no like guideline against having C extensions underneath some of this stuff.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's just, I personally don't know how to do it, so somebody else is going to have to contribute how to do that. I do want us to be like really focused on the design ethic, and so far that's emerged that every widget should have basically 3 properties, which are like 3 levels of engagement. And the first level is that you can always do something interesting with 1 or at the most 2 lines of code. So, for instance, to make a tree view, you can use a widget called a dictionary grid, which needs 2 lines of code. The first is to define the dictionary, the list of dictionaries that you're going to pass to it, and then the other is to create it. Well, I guess 3 lines of code, because you have to show it. 4 lines of code, you also have to pack it into your window. But it's really just that 1 line of code to new it up, to make it do something interesting. So whenever we make these, it should be like really easy for developers to get feedback that they're on the right track. Then we have the second level of engagement is maybe that you're going to tweak it and configure it. At this level, you may actually start to get exposed a little bit to underlying GTK concepts. Like, maybe you have to understand that it's a tree view because you're setting a tree view has tree view columns, and you're setting a property on the tree view column. But you don't have to create new classes and make them interact in complicated ways. And then the third is that you can extend them through subclassing. And at this point, the extension point, you may have to dive pretty deeply into GTK, and that's okay. So we're not trying to ultimately hide GTK from people, but more, you know, create an on-ramp. So I think if we create a system where people never get boxed in, like if they choose to use a widget, but they never have to like go back and completely re-implement something because we don't support it, we'll get a lot more interesting applications written. All right, so I thought now we could just like open the floor to ideas about the general idea, and then discuss that for a while, and then I'd like to have a discussion about like specific widgets or other programming task type things that people would like to see. So
I've got a question regarding the fact that you want to extend them just by subclassing. Do you mean that we should try to avoid to provide too many events in my widget? Because if I had a widget, I was thinking about clutter canvas doing something, and I might raise events of this event, you drag and drop something on my widget, etc. Do you prefer to use events and to just connect them, or you want us to provide a class that already has all the events wired and you just have to implement the callbacks? So
yeah. So by event, I think you mean, I'm pretty sure you mean signal, but I'm guessing you're a Mono developer.
Yeah,
so it's the same thing. I understand. I understood what you meant. Could you? I don't understand your question totally.
Well,
I'm not sure why.
For example, I want to use this widget with 2 lines of code, but my widget is just going to show information. And to really get it interesting, you want to start raising to signals. Is that counting into your 4 lines of code, or is it just? Oh. Because it might be the case that you have 5 interesting signals, so to configure or to really start to get really cool stuff from that widget, you might have to add.
You have to connect to signals. Yeah, I think as long. So in my opinion, if you can create a widget and like it displays something, and you can say, oh, okay, like, awesome, I was able to show something. But then you have to connect to signals. But if you connect to signals in a totally Pythonic way, like the way that you would expect to in PyGtk, and it's really simple, then that's okay. Even if there's no interesting behavior without connecting to signals, I think that's okay, as long as you get a feeling of accomplishment first.
Now correct me. The purpose for this isn't to preclude any knowledge of how GTK works. It's just to make widgets easier to use and more useful widgets, correct? Like an example I know you've given me in the past is, for example, or like I said, setting up the tree view. Anyone who's done GTK programming knows that that's a pain in the butt of all the things you have to set up in the models and so forth. But we have something that simplifies it by you just pass it a dictionary or a list or whatever. I'm just making a hypothetical, I'm not sure how it works. And it sets it up for you. But that doesn't preclude you knowing about setting up signals to know when, say, an item is clicked or something like that.
Right.
So you still need to know how GTK works. This is just to make it easier to use awesome widgets.
But maybe if we think that there are, for instance, 2 or 3 signals that are really interesting for developer, we can maybe put some kind of init function, so that people just can just wire those functions in the important signals, and just to make them more obvious to users.
In the init function?
Not init, but yeah, let's say initialize.
You mean you pass in like callbacks or something?
Yeah. Because if we think that we want just to, for instance, there are something like 30 signals available, but we just think that there are 3 that are important for the widgets. So we can maybe just highlight it like that. If you want to initialize this and this and this, we'll have cool stuff then.
It's possible that the widget actually isn't very useful without connecting to some of the signals, right?
Right.
So if that's the case, then you should probably make that somewhat mandatory that they pass in something.
But then it's like too high of a step to get something, to get feedback.
To get it to the display.
Right, like I mean, so I think like the people who are using these, we should treat them as users and think about like doing user-centered design for them. We want to give them like...
But then they might see the widget and say, well, why isn't it not working?
Well, now I have to connect to signals. Yeah, and like what are the right signals to connect to and stuff.
But it should be useful without doing anything more than just 2 lines. I mean, people just should be able to put those 2 lines and everything should work without some functionality, because if, for example, you won't have drag and drop, but it should work. Most people don't care about drag and drop. They want to put a table there and see them. If you later want to add drag and drop functionality, you'll say, okay, I need to add a signal, another line, but you went through the first part successfully.
I agree. Yeah. Okay, so it's a general design rule, it sounds like, that we have accepted, that you can write a line or two of code and see something interesting happen. You'll probably have to deal with signals in some way for most widgets, but that's pretty normal. So I think this kind of connects to Glade integration, I think, because we really want, I think the standard way that you do this with PyGtk is that you can drag them into your window in Glade and then use the Signals tab to set up signal handlers. And I have no, it's not that I have no idea, I've put no effort into making the widgets that I made so far have Glade integration. Does anybody else think that Glade integration is like a critical element?
It's not critical, but it's a pain in the butt that right now Glade, when you say I'm going to get a Python object, the XML it generates, it completely ignores the fact that you said I'm not going to get a G-int or a G-string, but a Py object, which you can do by writing the XML by hand. But if you edit that XML by hand and say, one of my parameters is going to be a Python object, and you go to Glade and do something, it just completely scraps that parameter off your signal, and it's a major pain in the ass. And I suppose that for someone who doesn't really know why is going on in the background, or the fact that he has to go to the XML after he's saving Glade, change it back to a Py object and use it, it's...
I have no idea what you're talking about. Like,
if you have a signal, and you say, in my signal, one of the parameters is going to be a Py object, a Python object, which you can pass. The Glade is going to generate an XML, right? And
But
when you're in the Signals tab,
I never do that. So I just type in the signal name and hit enter, and then in the code in the signal handler, I just write the variables, and then I just get whatever types it passes. Am I
I wouldn't think you need to do that in Python. Say what arguments.
no, but if you've used Glade before, like you would do.
Sure, in C you do, but
If you use it like you used to in C, I'm talking about people that might have had seen this working already in C.
So Python's dynamically typed,
I know.
so it doesn't care what.
I know he doesn't care, but it's gonna happen to
What's going to happen? I'm sorry. I'm not trying to push back. I'm genuinely confused about your point. Can you?
Chad,
I know it's me being dumb.
I can't
Huh?
talk, I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. So like for Python developers, like what happens to
problems
them?
that you say, and it also happens with tree models and list models if you create them through Glade. So if I do create a tree model through Glade, I'm working with PyGtk, and I say I'm going to create a tree model in Glade, and I say, well, it's going to have a string, an int, and a Python object. Don't ask me why, but I want to do that. Right? So you do all that through Glade, and it's going to create for you that tree model. In the XML though, because there's a bug in Glade, is going to completely ignore the fact that the third parameter was a Py object, and it's just going to remove that XML node. It's not that, it's just completely, it's going to remove it. You're not going to have that third column that you said, I'm going to have integer, string, and Python object. It's just going to take it out of the XML. I don't know if it's, I don't really remember if it was the whole node or just the value of the node. And when you're going to be working in Python and you're expecting 3 columns, integer, string, object, you're just going to have 2 columns. That's the problem.
This has never happened to me. Does this happen to other people?
That's not the problem, because Glade is language independent, so it doesn't, you can't put
Well, you
can
can
object.
Yeah, but
Object.
if you go manually to the XML,
Well, you shouldn't be editing Glade XML manually.
but if you say Py object, which should be allowed, it's a bug in Glade. It's recognized as a bug in Glade, but you have it in Python.
Okay.
It's, if you were doing it in C,
Well, yeah.
It's not like you two talked past each other a minute ago. Like, you were asking if the lack of Glade was a problem, and then he just started talking about Glade bugs. So like,
yeah,
sounds like the
no.
answer's
But
not
what I'm
really.
saying is that we should take a look at the bugs from Glade that will affect people using this. And if
I
we're gonna-
propose we just capture this as an issue and move on, because I obviously am not going to, we could spend the rest of the hour and obviously
No,
not going to understand the problem.
Just to point out that it will happen eventually.
Okay, so for my part, I found it very easy to use Glade. Like, you have to know what the function would you call it a function signature in Python? Is that what you would call it? I don't know, but like you just have to know what the arguments, what's going to be passed in. So like I go click on a widget, click on the signals tab, click on the signal I care about, type in a name like on add or add row, whatever I want. Then I go to my code file that is associated with that Glade file, and I just write a function called whatever that was, and then like sometimes I get them wrong, and then when I try to run the program, it tells me you're supposed to have 5 parameters and you only have 4 or whatever, and then I just start using print and stuff to figure out what they are. So, okay, so are there any other thoughts about the design rationale, the design of creating widgets in general?
I'm not understanding is, what is in Gobi now. Extend through subclassing, user has to dive deeply into GTK.
They may have
Is
to.
this GTK?
Oh, that's GTK, not GD. Yeah, please not. Hopefully we won't have to get into GDK too much.
So for your, at the moment when you write objects and things like that, I guess you're just following the standard G-object patterns of having signals and things like that. Have you, which makes sense when you're doing C, I guess, but not as much sense when you're dynamically typing stuff. So have you ever looked at doing, having something like delegates or whatever, which are just introspected and, you know, rather than connect this signal to this, or just have this signal name? If the object has the
So introspect to see if there's a signal named this by default and just automatically hook it up.
No, but just because this is the first I heard that you could do that. Like, I mean, should we do that?
Coca works like that.
What does?
Objective-C. Coca works like that.
So like instead of hooking up a signal, I could just say like, if you make up a function with this name, it'll automatically handle this?
Yeah.
Well,
that seems way better.
We also have that already, because in GTK or PyGtk, if you have events and you have to underscore the name of the event, it's going to call that. So it's already implemented there. We just need to leverage it further.
You only get that when subclassing.
Yeah, yes, sure.
You can't just have like button 1 click.
Right. Okay, so.
But I think that would be a great addition.
But it's more documentation.
That won't work, is what you're saying, because like if you drag a button, say new.
The only case that'll work is if you like subclass button, and then in your subclass you have like do click, then, but you can't just say like button 1 click, and that'll just default.
I see.
Right, this would require some work to make it work, but I'm just wondering whether to make things easier, we're following too much in the way how G-object works, rather than a way that Python should work.
Well, it's not so bad because you can call this connect signals function that uses your Python namespace and sees the functions that are there. So you have to explicitly list those function names off in the Glade file.
Yeah. So it's all hooked up for you automatically right now.
Using GTK Builder, not Glade, right?
Well, Glade the program,
yeah,
but
you're not using libglade.
We're not using libglade. Yeah. Sorry, that's a point. This has been a point of confusion a few times. Like I say, like in the tutorial, use Glade, and people say, but Glade's deprecated. It's like, no, Glade the program is not deprecated. Glade creates GDK Builder compliant XML, or you can still set it to create. You can still set it to create libglade XML if you want, but nobody should be doing that, is my understanding.
Okay, so this is actually a very, very interesting point, because what you could do is you could iterate over the symbols defined in your Python namespace, looking for things like, I don't know, event underscore button 1 underscore click. And then you could ask the GTK builder, well, do you have something called button 1, and does it have a clicked signal, and can I do this? That's definitely within the realm of possibility.
I think that sounds like something we should look into to just make this.
It all sounds really complicated to me, actually.
It is.
It seems like we can just.
The initial thing is complicated, but then
Right.
afterwards I'm
So
wondering
for the
whether it's
widget builder,
easier to
yes,
use.
but
the problem with this approach is that if it should be easier at the long term, but people that want to be easy should be using those 2 lines only, or one, and should not be subclassing. And if you want to get deeper into the object, let's say I want a signal or I want to add this functionality, going out from the actual model will mean that people that right now uses PyGtk would need to start learning a new thing and will stop using these new widgets because they are different. So if you want to be, it should be easy, you should not be subclassing nothing.
And for delegate systems, you don't need to subclass. You just have an object which implements those functions, and you just set it. So if you had one main object or whatever, which in Python is kind of, it happened, you would just create the widget and set the delegate on the widget. And that's the widget, when it needs to do something, would introspect the delegate and say, oh, did map change?
Is this like you say, like, let's say I have like my widget. Like, let's say, well, it's an arbitrary thing called Glade. So you go to Glade and you drag the widget onto your window. And then in your code, you say self.builder get object widget1 dot on signal, whatever the arbitrary signal is, on foo equals your function name. Is that the way you write the code, and then you have a function somewhere else?
No,
Glade will do that for you if you really want to, I guess. For signals, it'll do the autoconnect, or Builder will do the autoconnect.
Oh, well, see, I'm just mapping it so to the .NET way of doing it. So in .NET, like, you don't have to necessarily, you can say plus equals, and then whatever function you want it to call. And in fact, you can just you can write a function in line. You can pass it an anonymous delegate at that
So
point.
I guess what I'm saying is, in the way I would expect it, is that we wouldn't have to deal with connecting up signals and stuff like that. If I want, say, if we had a map widget and we had location change, any object that I feel would be the delegate for the map widget would just implement on location change, and I would set that it could implement multiple.
Could you just like type the pseudocode in? Like, just make it like, just type in the way you would expect a user to consume it. I'm sorry, I'm a dope. I'm not visualizing.
Too simple to like really.
So the way you were talking about was basically overriding the method in an object in Python, right?
Well, it's usually, well,
You're just assigning the signal to a certain function.
well, in .NET plus equals for a member that is said to be an event which maps to signals, that the plus equals is overrided. So it's just like, does all the connect code for you just by saying plus equals.
The plus equal in C# is taken care by the compiler of C#. That is going to be generated to objects.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So it's a no.
But it's like it just adds it to the signal list, right?
Yeah, it would be just like saying connect.
Yeah.
Dot connect name.
So delegate is just another object, and it has the signals that you would call inside the object, and then you set the object as a property on the widget, and then the widget would just call the signal handlers inside that object, because it would just see that they're there.
Okay.
So it's similar, but it's not exactly the same.
Thanks.
Can't be more descriptive.
So you're doing this inside of another, of an object definition then?
Map.delegate equals self. Oh, so it has a delegate member, and then so it's expecting to be assigned to an object that has members that match up to what's defined there.
Right.
And then what if you don't? Do you have to? Thanks, Sil. Oh, that was something else. Sorry. Sorry, I just got a tweet that said I don't know what I'm talking about. Aquarius, of course. So,
Creative cause.
Okay. I think it was from this morning. Okay.
So, I mean, I don't want to derail it. I'm just saying that.
I would say
we stick a lot to how the way we've done the C stuff for all these years. And I don't know whether that works great for a language where you have more power.
Can you help me with it later? Because maybe we could just go and just port everything that we have now and then just make it a design pattern and then we just apply universally.
Well, it's, I don't...
It just seems like this you're basically talking about having listener objects on a widget by widget basis, right? That doesn't seem very useful when the primary case is going to be that there's only one signal that you're interested in.
Exactly, sure. But I'm
So like you're gonna have like button
widgets will
click,
get more
right?
complex, yeah.
So this really is only going to be something that's meaningful in any way when you have more than one, because otherwise
Yeah.
it's easier to just have the function rather than make this object wrap
Agreed.
a single function.
Okay, but let's do move on, but thanks for the input. I mean, I hope you don't feel like I was resistant to the message, like so much as, okay. So much as.
You have his own question, maybe. So I want to write something. I want to write an application, and I know quickly is going to be the easiest way to do it. Where do I go for a shopping list? Like, how can I see what's available there now?
In quickly widgets?
Or in all of this, right? Like, what are the templates that are available? What are the widgets that are available? Can it solve my problem or not? Basically.
Right. So.
And how can I personally help to fill that out and do that documentation? Because I know it's going to require work.
It's not easy. So like right now, if you want to know what's in quickly, you have to go to the command line and say quickly help, and there's actually quite rich help, but there's no web page that you can go to or anything that like, you know, or you could do quickly tutorial, and it'll show you what tutorials are available. And for quickly widgets, you have to go to IPython and use tab completion, and like there's dot comments in it, but there's no information architecture.
Is it worth setting up some kind of a project? Like, I'd like to contribute to that.
Yes, we had a deep, long discussion about that yesterday, about setting up developer.ubuntu.com and making like a manual for application developers. Did that answer your question though? Was I understanding your point?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Are we currently generating API docs for Quickly?
Well, Quickly doesn't have an API, but Quickly widgets, I've written, I've added PyDocs to it, but we don't generate it.
Okay, so is that something to be useful?
Yeah, totally.
Okay, I'll make sure.
I just didn't know where to put them, so you have to look at it in IPython. You can do question mark.
There are two levels of documentation. One is that you can generate with APDoc or something, that is the class structure and what the signals or whatever. But maybe, if I understand Elliot correctly, what he's asking is for a page where I can see all the widgets, an image of them, 2 lines of how can I reproduce that image, so I can browse that page and say...
so you were talking about the 1 and 2 lines? I just want a little shopping list. Like,
yes, this widget is like
Just
this.
look in IPython, and if it's not what you want, just tell me how what you want is different, and I'll make it work like that. And then when we generate the documentation, it'll work. I think you wanted to say something, Ryan.
Yeah, just to drag your asses back over to the delegate thing once again.
Do you guys need to take this outside?
No. I think the general idea could be a lot more useful if instead of having one delegate per widget in the program, we just have one delegate per program.
That's what I mean. That's how it works. Because you're introspecting, you don't need to say that I'm only a delegate for this widget. You just...
Right, so, but what I'm saying is instead of like do changed or whatever, you say do like button 1 click, button 2 click, these are all separate functions.
Yes.
Oh, okay, so then I misunderstood you. It's a fantastic idea.
Right. For Python, that just seems to make a lot of sense.
So all of the events in the entire program are in one class.
Okay.
Right.
Right, yeah, okay.
Those are the type of programs I've seen written in Python.
If these
So
guys...
it kind of makes more sense.
If these guys agree, it's obviously a good idea, so it's...
And, you know, it doesn't hurt to try it for a few widgets and see how well it works, and then port the rest.
Which is actually a very nice bridge. I'd like to talk about like specific widgets right now, and at least make sure that we spend some time brainstorming new widgets that people would like to see and create.
So do you think it's cracked to just go crazy on the tree that we have from GTK builder? And
I don't think it is. I don't have enough experience with...
Because all those widgets have names, right? So.
Right. And you create them, you know the names, so...
I'm going to whack at an implementation of this.
So you're going to be done by the end of the session? You have 30 minutes.
Yeah, it's actually going to be pretty easy.
Okay.
It's like 20 lines of code.
I was totally kidding. We have 20 minutes, I think, right? Do we not? Okay. Can we talk about specific widgets? Is that cool? Like, are you guys? Okay. So here's the widgets that we have so far that are like that you can install from Universe right now on Lucid. We have something called a dictionary grid. A dictionary grid is an extension of tree view. It expects a list of dictionaries, and if you just give it a list of dictionaries, it'll do its best to display those. It looks at the name, it'll use the keys for the dictionaries as titles for the columns. It will look at those keys and it'll make some assumptions. Any key that ends in a question mark, it will assume is a Boolean and use checkbox, renderer, whatever for it. Anything that ends in count, it'll assume it's an integer. Anything that is ID, it'll assume is an integer. And then it'll use, if you set it to edit mode, it'll use spinners for those to present them. Anything that ends in price will use a spinner that presents it as a currency, like whatever. I forget, I just made it format in dot 00. So there, oh, and there's also a grid filter that goes with it. So then you can make another, there's another widget called grid filter. If you give it a dictionary grid or one of its descendants, it'll automatically make like a filter UI. Did you guys see this? I blogged about this a while ago. So then it'll like, so, you know, you can say for each column, it'll like look at the type of the column and give an appropriate drop down and filter, and you can add and remove columns. It's a dynamic thing.
Those two are cool.
What's that?
Those two are cool with the feature.
And then there's couch grid, which is a dictionary grid, but it automatically uses desktop couch for persistence for you. So you just give it a database name and then a record type, and it'll do its best to display that data. If you set it to editable, it'll handle the persistence for you and stuff. There's a press and hold button, which basically is just it's a GTK button, and as you hold it down, I forget how long, like every half a second or something, it'll call whatever function you give it. And so you can just get some free functionality. I made that one for Photobomb, so you can just like hold a button down and make something grow. And then there's okay, this one we should, I'm not sure we should keep this one. There's one called an Async Task Progress Box. It's a progress bar, and you pass it a function, and it'll call that function on a thread, and then emit a completed signal for you. And this is, it probably causes fewer bugs than having people do thread programming themselves, but having me do thread programming for you is probably, but it works. We use it a lot in Bug Hugger and stuff like that, but then like when accessibility is turned on, sometimes it'll do funky stuff, but I'm wondering whether we should,
Maybe we just fix that.
We did fix it, but I'm sure there's other bugs. You have to like call threads enter, threads init, like if you're consuming it, like, I don't know, it's just you added threads to your program, and I'm not sure, this conversation's probably out of scope for it, but I'm not sure, I'm thinking we may want to say, just never use threads, find some other way, and but there's some things that you can't, like I can't call launchpad lib. It freezes the UI for a really long time.
Then use GIO, that's called GIO is for.
Can you use GIO on launchpad lib?
As long as you patch launchpad lib to do it.
Yeah. So launchpad lib is not, it's a totally synchronous API, and they have no plans to make it async.
And there are lots of synchronous APIs when you can't do waiting on it or waiting on sockets.
Well, I don't know about waiting on sockets, but isn't GIO like a network library now that like you can call?
GIO will let you fetch URLs, for example. I mean, the problem is that launchpad lib uses the Python standard library.
There's a lot of situations where you block on stuff and you can't, UI.
I don't think we can say we're never going to do anything.
So is there a good programmer who can own async task progress box, or should we kill it?
I wouldn't trust myself doing threads and Python.
No one's willing to step up. Okay, as long as you guys don't mind littering Ubuntu with my threading code. Okay, so let's just keep rocking through this. So there's also a bunch of prompts. These are one-liners that like just get like feedback from the user right away. So you can get a string, you can get an integer, you can get a decimal, you can get a price, or you can get a yes/no response. You can You can show a save image dialog, an open image dialog, or a directory chooser. And then there's also something that are called alerts. These just only let the user say okay, and there's warning, info, and error. So these are totally undesigned from a visual point of view. They probably stomp all over the HIG and stuff like that.
Do they wrap GTK message?
Yeah. Well, they all wrap each other, and then there's, you know, it's a hierarchy that's pretty easy to attach to and extend, and then but there's helper functions for each, so you don't have to create the object and then run it. You can just say quickly.prompts.string and then pass in a title and a message. Well, what you do is you say the code pattern is response comma value equals quickly.prompts.foo, whatever it needs to construct it, and then you say if response equals gdk.response underscore okay, then do something with the value. And so it's, you know, just, it shows you how to use the dialogues correctly. Okay, so that's the namespace. Like, those are the widgets so far. So I've started 2 other widgets. One is a webcam widget, which I got blocked on because the GStreamer and the X aren't getting along on my Mini 10V. So Seb's got that bug, but he's a bit busy this week, so I don't think he's gonna. It works on my desktop at home though, so when I get home, we'll progress. And I started a Google Maps one also. So, so should we just brainstorm a bit, other widgets that people would like to see, and maybe sign people up for them?
I've got one. I've been working on a clutter, or PyClutter widget with PyGtk that allows you to access your contacts that have been stored in desktop couch. So it's a canvas, very similar to the Nautilus canvas, has signals like you drag something in a contact, etc.
And you did that in Clutter?
In PyClutter, so you can embed it in PyGtk, the Clutter embedded stage. I initially started with Goo Canvas, but it's not a very good idea. And since we should be moving eventually to Clutter, well,
PyClutter is not in a very good state right now.
No, it does the trick so far. I'll probably do it in Val and Rapid in Python.
But the GObject binding is becoming better, especially in Clutter side. So maybe we should just wait to have this.
Yeah, but just as an idea for a widget later on, especially because I've talked with the design guys and they want contacts to have the same user experience everywhere, so we could bring that user experience to the guys doing quickly applications, so that they can interact with your contacts and probably have fun accessing your address book and fill in again with your contacts. Maybe Photobomb could use the contacts to tag pictures and things like that.
So you're going to make a contacts widget?
Yeah, well, it's already written, but it's in Clutter, PyClutter, but we can wait a little bit.
But can't we just wrap that up?
Yeah.
Like.
Yeah, it's in PyClutter. You should be able to measure the amount of how the bindings of Python to Clutter are done, and they're not being kept up to the latest API. But this is perfectly workable right now. I think that maybe waiting a couple of months or speak with them and see if they update.
Okay, I kind of assumed that we'd have a contacts widget, but it would be like based on a couch grid. But then we wouldn't have all this drag and drop cool stuff. So that sounds a lot better. But so
well, I mean, as you wish. I can just push it. If you like it, you keep it. If you don't like it, you just throw it back to me.
I'm sure we'll like it.
No big deal.
What about very complex widgets like AVWord? You can embed it as a widget. We have events, we talked about it yesterday.
Okay.
A browser like WebKit. It would be nice. Well,
wait. Did you go on to one? So you said an AVWord widget?
We have it already. It's the canvas, and then it exposes just methods like change for the letter to be bold, and so on, or activate spell checking.
So it's sort of like the source. Well. It's like the source view, but easier to use.
Well, it's more like a word processor. And the API is not very nice now. I don't like it much, but it works. and people are doing very cool stuff in Sugar. For example, in India, they are doing an activity in Python, and it's for teaching, doing articles for press, and putting images, embedding audio, and so on. And they use this as part of it because it's important formatting as well.
Okay, so what's it called?
So I'm meaning if there's also interest in talking about very big widgets.
Yeah.
We talked about smallish, simple, the small building blocks. You can do complex things, but you need a lot of them.
I think a word processing widget would rock. I mean, I think that would be awesome.
I was thinking like it'd be really nice to be able to display formatted text. You know, so something like maybe like GTK kind of label, but something that you could also throw at it formatted text, so you get indentation and stuff like that.
Did someone get? Okay. Could that be a?
Could that happen everywhere?
So I can add it there and put some links. So we have now AP Word, we have Evians, we have Mozilla and WebKit, and we have some others like the Terminal one. I don't know what it's called. But we still miss some very important ones, I think, like Inkscape. And there was a very big limitation. Yeah, no merit. It would be very good to embed a spreadsheet.
I think that's even more useful than a word processor.
A spreadsheet widget?
Yeah, that'd be very cool.
And is it feasible for anyone to wrap up like
I think it's
numeric
feasible.
and stuff?
I have
way
already
beyond my
looked at it, and the problem was that the widget which implements the canvas had references to the top level window. So we need to break that one to make things right.
Is that based on numeric or?
Yeah. No, I'm talking how the code inside is done. If we break this awkward relationship from the canvas to the top level window, we could automatically move all this code to a library and generate bindings.
And then just wrap that up
or not
in a simple way.
But first we need to refactor a bit, so things are.
So are you the person who can do that? What's your name? What's your
Tomeo.
Tomeo?
Yeah, I'm a Sugar developer and the telepathy. So
that's
very interested on that.
It's nice to meet you in real life. That's neat. Okay. Tomeo can do spreadsheet and word processing. That actually reminded me. What do you guys think if we had like a image display and editing widget? Like you just got editing functions with it. Similar to what you were saying, like to word processing.
That's very interesting.
Yeah, well, like Ivanka, crop and red eye and stuff like that.
We have already PIL, but I don't know if it integrates very well with GTK, Cairo, and so on.
I used Clutter for, not Clutter, I used GooCanvas or Photobomb. Would that be feasible just to take my code that I did there? I don't know what you guys think of GooCanvas. Is GooCanvas like suitable, or I just picked it because I knew SVG and I thought I could do it. I didn't do any research.
The Canvas is a problem with us. The Canvas problem is a big problem for us. We use Hippo, Full Canvas, GooCanvas, but I don't see a.
Okay, let's say image editing widget. I wouldn't mind taking my Photobomb code and making it into a widget. I don't think it would be that hard. But I have no undo in it. And I like doing undo. This is like a simple matter of programming. Someone just needs to show me the pattern, right? It's not like.
Okay. Memento pattern.
What's that?
Undo is memento pattern. It's easy.
Do what?
Undo is implementing clutter, is that what he said?
But I would say I've worked also with GooCanvas and it works fine, but you have some problems if you were to, because you can add widgets to it. Then you start having I know you're not going to add widgets into the, or you should not be adding GTK widgets to the GTK widget canvas.
The GooCanvas?
Yeah. When they overlap, you've got lots of problems.
Well, I think you just add widgets just to like add a control to it. Like I don't think you're supposed to like render, like if you right click, you may want to add a widget to the canvas to.
Yeah, exactly. Those were fine as long as you know when you position them that there's not going to be any overlapping. As soon as there's an overlapping, the rendering goes ballistic. It doesn't do it nicely. But if it's just for image editing, basic image editing like drawing and I don't know, having different pencils and some things like that, it goes pretty well. But I found that the Clutter API was a really nice. Well, a lot nicer.
Well, I think Clutter's like suitable for animation and stuff like that, and Goo Canvas is just for things. Am I right? Like it's.
Well, yeah, I mean, you've got to do a lot of work when you write something in Clutter, right? I mean, there are a few widget libraries, but they don't have any real. They won't fit into the desktop.
The Clutter one.
Unity be one.
Okay.
Goo Canvas seems better, although it's just very slow on ARM, but I don't think that's a problem.
Are there any like Ubuntu One APIs that we should be making easier for developers to use?
There's a new feature in Lucid where you can put a file into Ubuntu One and get a public URL to it that can be shared with anyone. You can publish. So that might be a handy thing to have.
Yeah, especially if you stuff it into the Gwibber microblogging API, and we could even have several layers there where you can say, tweet this file.
That could be very cool, actually.
Just tweet a file. That would be
So the API allows you give it a file to upload, it uploads it, and then it gives you a URL of that file, or?
Well, that's what we should make the API do. Currently, the functionality is there for those things to happen, but it's not exposed in a nice little API.
But like I could just write a Python wrapper for what's there right now.
Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah, that would be very useful.
Is there anything else in Ubuntu One that we should be looking at making?
So I'm wondering. So there's the user might have purchased music, so there could be a way to like, tell where's my music. The user might have set some different folders to be synchronized with Ubuntu One. So there is a way to tell here are the folders that you're synchronizing with Ubuntu One.
That's a good one. Oh, I'm sorry to interrupt, but you just reminded me we don't have a media player.
Oh yeah,
that's like pathetic. Like so, we need like a movie player and sound player. So okay, so now keep going. I'll write that down. You can keep going. Ubuntu One.
So Tomboy Notes synchronized with Ubuntu One. I'm just throwing random stuff up in the air here. I don't know if there's something that we would want to tie in with Tomboy or. Because Gwibber has a thing where you can save a tweet into Tomboy. I thought that was really cool. There might be more stuff there.
Like so save into Tomboy.
Yeah, so that's not actually an Ubuntu One kind of thing, but it's more of a Tomboy.
It's a desktop thing.
Tomboy has a pretty rich dbus API. That's how we do it in Gwibber. So you can do actually quite a bit of stuff with Tomboy with the dbus API.
Oh, hey Ryan. I see that. So we could just like have a general quickly add the Tomboy function, and then you can just take arbitrary stuff. Does it just take strings, or can you?
Yeah, so you can give it like a little bit of XML, I think, too, if you want to set like formatting.
Like give it like cool. A note name and then the content, and
we can just snipe the code out of Gwibber.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, Gwibber's got just a little function for that in one of the utility modules that you can swipe it. It's designed to make it really easy to just push stuff in there.
Cool. All right.
Track that out.
That's a good one, Elliot. Anything else in Yelping? Well, what about the music store? Or is that cracky?
Well, you mentioned being able to like list the music that you bought.
But what about being able to just drop the music store into your own?
Oh yeah.
Well, you can do that already.
You can already do that.
Oh, so you're one step ahead?
Like 3 lines of Python or something like that,
If
right?
you embed the music store in your application, it'll work in about 5 lines of Python.
So we should add that then.
To what?
To the quickly widgets thing, and so it's one of the.
If it's already 5 lines of code, I don't know if we need to necessarily wrap anything.
But it's worth discussing what namespace it should be in.
Yeah.
Right.
And you need to do a little bit more because the thing you embed it in needs to handle stuff like playing MP3.
Oh yeah, like the previews and stuff.
Yeah.
So they're
But can we
callbacks.
wrap? But like, I think it would be pretty cool if you could just in Blade drag a music store onto your window and then.
Boom. Oh, by the way, we have 5 minutes left.
Oh, okay, thanks. Okay. Should we, you look mystified by my comment there.
No, I'm trying to think if there's, I don't think there's anything else really.
You were still running down the Ubuntu one stuff. Okay. Anything else in 5 minutes? Or should we keep brainstorming widgets, or should
maybe
we?
I would like to mention that there are other widgets that are related to the context. For example, a widget for a chat, because it might be interesting if you are doing something, drawing or whatever, to have also a side of the same window with the where you chat with the other people who are doing this.
Widget with chat?
Yeah.
Okay. We have a session tomorrow with the empathy guys are going to be here. Can you come to that?
Yeah.
Because we really want to make it like really easy to use telepathy on the desktop. It's really hard.
Do you have like a quickly application class or anything like that?
Well,
with like single instancing and things like that, because GTK is
the application.
It's cycling.
Yeah.
Well, we generate an application for you when you say quickly create, and it just generates boilerplate. But one of the Python guys at Canonical is found my way of doing that rather offensive, and so he joined the quickly group. So I think he's going to make it so it's rather like instead of generating code, it's rather a base class library that you attach to, which also, we'll talk about this in the quickly session in general, also help quickly itself, because right now it just generates all this boilerplate and it runs, but you have no idea where to write code, and it went a little crazy in Lucid.
Make sure he knows about GTK application. Yeah.
So it should be derived from GTK application?
Which doesn't exist yet, but...
It doesn't exist?
No, it depends on GDBus, which is not merged. So when GDBus gets merged, sometime after that, GTK application will get merged.
So we could write the class in such a way that then future applications will...
We're talking like Maverick timeframe.
So it will be merged during this time frame, during the Mavericks?
GDBus certainly, GTK application like 80%.
And GTK application will be in actual GTK?
Yes.
The GTK itself?
Yeah.
Okay,
That's like one of the first things that's going to take advantage of GDBus from GTK.
Cool.
Cool. All right, so we'll stay synced with you on that and make sure we do it right. Thanks, Ryan.
The signal delegate is working.
So you already made that work?
Yeah.
All right.
Awesome.
So
I'd love to see that.
So that'll change the quickly template itself, probably, right?
Okay.
Because we'll want to have that.
And that's work I could help out on. I don't mind doing refactoring of the templates and all that stuff.
Anything else for the last 2 minutes?
What about model stuff? It's not widgets, but perhaps we can also make a lot of tasks easier for the developer if there are a set of model classes that are not widgets but can support and can have some integration with some widgets.
Oh, I got knocked offline.
Yeah, I think we all did.
Oh, bastards. Okay, I just saved the file though. So, can you tell me more what you mean?
Model classes.
Model classes.
Model, yeah.
So,
like we have a tree view and tree model.
Right. So far in Quickly, it's been very, with the Quickly widgets, it's been very simple where your model is passing in a dictionary or set of dictionaries, not actual, classes that are implementing all that stuff. So, what's your thought on that, Rick?
Well, this is looking Neil's.
Looks like I just got back.
Oh, you did. I was going to say you look like you're about to give birth to a deep idea. But
I'm not thinking Python dictionary.
Well, we should talk later because I don't think we'll have time to get into in this session. But I was thinking like it would be nice if we moved to more model-based programming. Like Ruby on Rails is like my hero in a lot of ways, where you can like point it to a data source and it says, well, I can make a UI for this, because I can see it. And maybe the data source could be like a model that you write, or it could be a CouchDB or a SQL table or something like that. Speaking of which, before we go, does anyone here know SQLite well enough that they'd be willing to extend dictionary grid to like bind to a SQL table? I think it would be good if you could say like, here's a connection string and have it like be able to edit a table.
Yeah, and we've had requests for that too.
Yeah. Nobody?
Some people are asking.
Yeah, I think we talked to somebody about that.
You can do the tables and get a table definition, but it's not really tied into SQLite. SQLite you can access through the database API through Python. So you just have to call some of the things tables within SQLite, and you can get the table definition out of that and read it. It shouldn't be too much work, but I cannot compromise that I can do it right now. I don't have enough time to do it. But
Okay.
It won't be too much.
I'll look at it then, because I think you probably just look at the couch grid code and see how it works and just make it SQLite instead of couch grid. Okay. Thanks, everybody.